the
for a pressure
bombing.
cooker and two teenagers, you know, and then they took over the whole city and shut it down. And to me, that looked a whole lot like martial law.
Yeah. Oh, God, I can't believe. See, this is why I didn't want to give this talk, because I knew that we'd have this conversation. And now it's on the record. All right, let me take a step back. We have to deal with it. Let me take a step back and a deep breath, because this is a very painful thing to talk about. So, all over the world, we know, it's well established, the State Department and intelligence agencies engage in theater, and it's what they do, it's spycraft, to create spectacles and events that people may not realize are spectacles and events. They'll funnel money to protesters, they'll, fly people in to infiltrate protesters, they'll create fake newspapers, and so on. So we know that this happens in countries around the world. I believe that a law has been passed in the United States, I think it's part of the Defense Authorization Act, I need to confirm this, that, now makes it legal to propagandize American citizens. Do we know about that? Yeah, it's true. But we've entered an era in which it is not crazy to assess news events to see if they're real or not real. And in the United States, news events to see if they're real or not real. We've entered an era in which it is not crazy to assess news events to see if they're real or not real. And in the United States as well as overseas. And in fact, it's kind of crazy not to. I don't think there's anything dishonorable about being in the intelligence services if you obey the Constitution and the law. But all over the world, our intelligence services are engaged in conspiring to create outcomes. That's their job. That's how they're successful. So now that it's illegal to propagandize in the United States, it doesn't surprise me that there's more and more products coming up in popular culture, more and more events in the news stream that seem to be, to my eye, to be subsidized. So if we know that infiltrators by the police, NYPD, they've been documented, or other police forces, dress up like people they're not and provoke violence, why is it unthinkable that there might be spectacles that might drive an outcome in the news stream? Like Chile, how did Pinochet, engage in his coup? He created photographs of a cache of weapons that the terrorists had, hidden. Was it real? Was it not? Most historians think it wasn't. I mean, this is like not unusual, in the process of creating a closed society. So if laws have made it legal to assassinate American citizens and legal to propagandize them, why should it be crazy or weird to think that that might be for a reason? And I see more and more TV shows about the CIA and more TV shows about spies and gigantic blockbusters in which surveillance is normalized and gigantic blockbusters in which people are tortured to get them to talk in a way that might exonerate people who actually tortured people to get them to talk in Guantanamo. And there's all this money being pumped into these unaccountable, terrorism fighting things. And now there's no law preventing that money from going through front organizations right into popular culture. So that's of interest to me. And so another thing I want to say, and there's so many people waiting to ask a question, but I just need to say this, is I'm skeptical of certain news events that seem more theatrical than the norm. Which, if you know what journalism is, you're supposed to confirm it with two sources. So ever since that experience, CNN is running with this. No one's verifying it. Journalists aren't in a position to follow up on anything anymore because budgets are slashed and there's no investigative reporting. All this nonsense can enter the media stream for purposes that have to do with advancing agendas because no one's checking. That's all I want to say about that.
Looked at this website, Crisis Solutions, and certainly there are a lot of suspicious things about this website. Our clients include governments and high-profile global corporations who expect us to provide crisis management approaches that match 21st century requirements. This includes harnessing cutting-edge technology. It's really interesting because down here you have a scrolling of companies that are part of this whole thing, and you can watch it scroll by. But what I wanted to point out is, these quotes, what our clients say, and sometimes the way the clients are described. This here is Chief Executive UK Insurance Group. Then you have Head of Corporate Communications, European Private Bank. Interesting. Group General Counsel, US-based professional service company. Chief Executive UK Public Sector Agency. Senior Executive Global Pharmaceutical Company. The first ever market-wide exercise. Crisis Solutions delivered the very first market-wide exercise involving more than 100 organizations and thousands of participants in a day-long simulated terror attack on London's financial sector. The one name that really jumped out at me, and I didn't go through every single person here, but digging through, Jim Preen is a very interesting name. He is a former journalist who works for many years at U.S. television network ABC News. He covered the Concorde crash in Paris, the Bosnian War, and the First Gulf War. During this time at ABC, he won 2 Emmy Awards. The time they did a stunt was this London to stage chemical attack. This is CNN back in 2002, I believe, or 2003. London, England, British Emergency Services will simulate a chemical weapons attack Sunday on a subway train below London's financial district in an effort to test the city's ability to deal with a terrorist strike. If we go into a message from the managing communications to coordinate some sort of massive crisis, right? So if they plan something and they have this drill, quote unquote, they're calling it a drill, but nobody in the public knows it's a drill. The only people that know it's a drill are the actors that are part of it, right? So they conduct this thing, and they freak people out, and people freak out. People do strange things. Obviously, if you destabilize a situation, any situation in public, it's going to cause chaos. People will react in the worst ways, some in the best ways, but it's going to create chaos. And what if people actually get hurt? Or what if people actually die? Well, they have this cover of being, oh, it's a drill, number one. And number two, the real life event, therefore, can never be blamed on these organizations, because these organizations are there to prevent this type of thing from happening. But look, see, they really do happen.
Crisis Solutions are the crisis simulation experts, and one of the reasons we lead the pack is Crisis Cloud, our secure web portal that simulates real-world communications.
Okay, hold on. It's hard to tell what is real and what is, mockery, what is satire. I mean, look at this. Welcome to Crisis Cloud. This really does seem kind of like a joke, doesn't it? All right, I'm sorry. Let me just keep going.
Portal that simulates real-world communications during an exercise. It features simulated news videos, print news stories, and social media. There's also Crisis Mail, with emails coming from a myriad of sources to ramp up pressure on the players. A chat function allows teams and individuals to message each other as the scenario unfolds. To log on, all you need is a broadband connection. Participants have password-protected access, so your exercise won't leak into the real world. News stories and tweets pour in as the exercise progresses. Crisis Solutions journalists will phone participants, updating their story.
Okay, how much of this is simulation and how much of this is supposed to be real life? Because there's a blurring here happening where reality is being bent to a scripted narrative. And you can see and you can feel it as this guy's describing what they do. And certainly, a crisis can be created within the cloud of people, or the people connected into the cloud. That crisis is happening in real time, in real life. So, where is the line between drill, simulation, and reality? But let's continue.
On the fly. Players themselves can put out internal messages to staff and external messages to all other stakeholders. Crisis Cloud, the secure media web portal that'll bring your exercise to life.
Iraq's continued defiance of the community of nations presents a challenge which must be addressed.
Presents a challenge which must
The
be
member for
addressed.
Braindler.
It is inherently
dangerous to allow a country such as Iraq
to retain weapons of mass destruction,
particularly
in the light
of
its past aggressive behaviour.
If the world community fails to disarm Iraq, we fear that other rogue states will be encouraged to believe that they too.
Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know. Details are very, very sketchy. As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still burning. We see these huge clouds of smoke and ash, and we know that behind that there's an empty piece of what was a very familiar New York skyline. 1,500 people are being treated.
The collapse of World Trade Center 7 on 9/11 was a rare event. Our study has identified thermal expansion as a new phenomenon that can cause the collapse of a structure.
Spoiler alert, you're a scientist.
Indeed.
And legally, I am required to ask you your thoughts about the coronavirus.
Oh.
And I understand you're not a virologist, you're not an immunologist, you're not an epidemiologist, but I suspect...
I'm an astrophysicist, Jim!
I suspect you have an opinion.
A point of view, I would say.
Okay.
I would say. So I'm broadly scientifically literate, but what I will say of this virus, I think we're in the middle of a massive experiment worldwide. And that
where
is...
are the guinea pigs?
Maybe. The experiment is, will people listen to scientists? It'd be interesting if we all paid attention to what scientists say. Maybe the coronavirus will just blow on by with a minimum of cases. And then we kicked its ass for obeying the recommendations of scientists on how to minimize your chances of getting it. That would be, it's an interesting experiment we're in the middle of.
I hope we win?
Our primitive methods of obtaining energy. Documented cases can be found online, recording all of those who invented a method of obtaining free, clean, renewable energy, and they were all shut down.